Good morning. I'm happy to be here because I was here in 2007, I believe, on a project when I was working still with the German Public Employment Service. I was here on a project for pre-accession before Bulgaria joined the European Union, and I had a very, very good time. Some couple of colleagues I recognized from that time. So it's good to see some familiar faces and also to be back in Sofia, which is a marvelous city. So thank you for inviting me. I came here to talk about the study that WAPES has just published with the Inter-American Development Bank and the OECD. It's a study that puts together basically three sources. One is a survey we did last year among yourselves. 73 public employment services responded to a questionnaire, a very generic, long questionnaire about what services you provide and what are your plans for the future. So we are reporting on that. Then we did a couple of interviews, semi-structured interviews with different public employment services, private partners and other stakeholders of the labor market, which we use as case studies in this study and explain it and put it into a context. And then we have made quite a bit of research of the new world of work. So we took different sources from, research, classical research, but also studies from different stakeholders, including employers. So all this is in the study. It's published. We have it, as Margareta said, on a USB stick. I would have loved to bring it to you as a book as well, because it's actually printed. But because it was coming from the OECD and the person that was to bring it had the bad luck to be very close to the terrorist attacks last Friday. She's well, but she's not, of course, in a state to come here and make a presentation. So apologies for that. And she sends her regards. The same as the Inter-American Development Bank that, because of budget reasons, cannot be here today. We had a movie that we wanted to show you because they recorded a movie for their presentation, but we thought it's better to postpone that yet another time, this presentation, the three of us, OECD, WAPES, and IDB, and do it all together instead of just two of the three. So I'm here to just share a couple of thoughts with you about the recommendations that we give in the study and what could be the next steps of what to do with the study. Where's the clicker? Ah, yeah. Thanks. So that's the study. We have it in French on the stick. If you take it, it's in French and in English. We also will have a Spanish version, maybe not so relevant for you now. That will be ready next week. You already mentioned a couple of things, Michael, so I don't want to, because I also had a couple of figures that I think were ILO figures because they were exactly the same, but good to see that we're talking about the same things. The main challenges that we part from in the study for the employment challenges and trends are those four, the demographic ones. So the topic that you're having here, of course, very timely because it's one of the most important ones. Also, in a way, a bit neglected one when it comes to setting up active labor market programs. Aging clients, aging workers are not necessarily always in the hot spot of it, although they're a big group and they carry a lot of knowledge and expertise that is important for the labor market. Technology is a big change, also affecting, of course, aging workers. And labor market transitions, meaning that the life cycle approach of one job career is not just entering the labor market, then being there somehow and then exiting it when you retire, but doing a lot of transitions within the career, into unemployment, out of unemployment, into another country, into another career. All these kind of transitions are relevant, and public employment services should be there when it happens, or already before to help and anticipate it. And the rising income inequalities, the gap between rich and poor is of course affecting as well. We're asking these three questions in the study. Who will be in the labor force? So basically, who are the clients of public employment services also? Is that changing? We think yes, migration will be a bigger topic than it has been now. It will be also more linked to employment, because migration not necessarily linked to employment. It's sometimes separate. You can see that, for example, in where migration is dealt with in ministries, usually in the Ministry of Internal Affairs, the Home Office, while employment is dealt with in the Ministry of Labor. But if we're talking about labor migration, you need to bring these two together, or even have a cross-cutting ministry. So the focus on new groups on the labor market will be important, and to unlock the potential of those that are on the labor market but are inactive or are not on the labor market at all because they're not integrated. What kind of jobs will be available? We think that, or evidence from different research is that poverty is reducing, the gap is widening, but poverty as such is reducing, so the quality of jobs is increasing in some parts of the world, but at the same time, even if there are more jobs, very often they are also not very decent, or they are not regular. So it's about not only increasing the quality of jobs, but also increasing them in the context of being decent work. And then we are also asking the questions, how will people find those jobs? There are different ways of finding jobs. Networks are still very relevant, personal networks especially, but technology is of course taking its toll into claiming more ways of how you find your jobs. And also how the different groups will find those jobs will be, and which networks will they have? Are public employment services in all those networks? Are they penetrating the market and the vacancy provision in a way that makes them an important and relevant player on the labor market, yes or no? So the recommendations that we are giving with this study are basically those: playing a more active role in coordinating employment and lifelong learning, basically being a manager or a moderator of the life cycle approach, being there, public employment services, not only when unemployment happens, but being there before it happens, being there when someone wants to move to another career, which doesn't have anything to do with unemployment, but might involve some freelance time, might involve some training time, might involve some time of inactivity before you start up your new career, but public employment services can help there as well. Adjusting policies and programs to better meet the need of target groups. It's evident from the study we made, from your responses, but also from the interviews, that there is a lot of targeting when it comes to putting groups together for active labor market programs. There's not necessarily a very in-deep targeting, saying that once a group is fixed, then it's not very permeable. It's not a very individual approach, which is of course difficult, because we also saw in the study that usually job consultants or people who are dealing with the clients, be it job seekers or employers, have a very high caseload, so very difficult to break it down to an individual level. But one of the recommendations is that to target more specifically, you need to deal even more with the individual than until now. Engaging employers is an old topic, especially in the European Union. I remember that when I was working for EURES, which is some years ago, as I said, we were always talking about how can we engage the employer more. And it's still a topic, not only outside of the European Union, but also in the European Union, how to get the employers really to be a sustainable, interested long-term partner for public employment services. Not just when there is a mass layoff, or not just when a small, medium-sized enterprise that doesn't have an HR department wants to have a cooperation for a time when they need a lot of people, but also to have like let's say a cooperation, a partnership with employers, how to set up that. That's something that is needed for public employment services to make a difference, because that's where the jobs are. It's evident, but it's not always the case. And adapting business models to new actors and technologies. That's something that will be more important in the future. New business models for public employment service means a new strategy, a new way of setting up the capacity. I don't want to give you too many figures, just this one, because this is a conference or a workshop about aging workforce. So this is from 73 respondents, 37 say they have a program for older workers, whatever that is. Yeah? So it's not many. That's a targeted program for older workers. So if we break down the recommendations I just mentioned to older workers, what would that mean for them? Coordinating employment and lifelong learning. For example, recommendation when it comes to aging workers, opt for a transitions approach and different learning models. Transitions approach for someone who is older means to talk to this person and also to assess the need of making a transition. For example, me, I'm 46. Am I old already? Most people will say, no, you're not so old. But when it comes to changing jobs, it's not so easy, okay? If I go down on the labor market, if I start sending CVs in the European Union, it will not be easy for me to find a job. Still, if I want to change the career, it's now the time to do it, for example. So how do you help a person like me or a more or less skilled person in an age that is over 40 or over 35 or over 50 to change the career? So that's something the public employment services could think more about, because there's a lot of investment into integrating younger people and then trying to find jobs for people that are low skilled, less skilled, but what about those that want to change their career? In many public employment services, they're classified as that they can help themselves, and it's true, they're less vulnerable. They're not vulnerable at all, maybe, but there might be services that could help them as well. Meet the needs of the target group. When you assess that with older workers, it's to define the target group. What I said already, what is old? I don't know whether you have been talking about that too. I'm in the bit unlucky position that I haven't seen it there yesterday. I heard a couple of things about it, that it was very good, but I don't have the details. So what is old? Did you define that? Is it 50 plus, 55 plus? I know there are official definitions, but sometimes it's the question also of the cultural background of the country where this person lives in. What is old? And what is the label? Whenever you put labels, also in active labor market programs on people, there's always the risk of stigmatizing them. So define the target group in a way that aging workers are in an advantageous position. Overcome the barriers, the mental barriers of, no, this person is too old, will not learn anything, will be stubborn, etc., rather into the focus of experienced, ready to learn, and ready to pass on the knowledge to other people. So assessing the skills, and a skills approach is always good in our view to address and define target groups, because when you take it from the skills side, you can always see what can this person do and then take it from there. We're talking about employment, we're talking about using skills. So skills are more important than labels. Age is relative to skills. Of course, the older you are, the more likely you will have more skills, but not necessarily so. Engaging employers in the context of aging, clients or potential aging workers. You train employers, and we've seen a couple of examples. There's one example in the study that is described as a case study from Australia, for example, where they train employers to employ older people. And that is working with the mindset of the employer. How do you put the employer in a position that he can value the skills of an older worker? Or employ an older worker and appreciate that this might be a new worker to the company, but a worker that brings in a lot of valuable things. and not just someone that is already past this date and therefore not necessary to employ. And in adapting business models, there are a couple of interesting business models, intergenerational models, not having a company where in one box there are the young ones, in the other box there are the old ones, and they never talk to each other, but set up from scratch, set up models where young and old work together, mentoring models where older people's mentor younger, but also younger can mentor older because they might be in the company for a longer time and they have more experience from inside the company. So it's not a question of age, because that can also sometimes be an issue, that an older worker doesn't want to be mentored by someone younger, but it's a question of how you frame it. And job rotation helps with that. Changing the job for a while, just for a couple of weeks, looking into what is this older person doing, what is this younger person doing in the job, and then kind of exchanging the experience. So just a couple of thoughts I'm flipping around, coming out of the study as a perspective of the recommendations. And this study took pretty long to make, unfortunately. I'm not happy with that. It took long to collect the data, to put all the data together. And I think personally that it's always better to bring this kind of data out earlier, because otherwise they get a little bit old. Nevertheless, I think we will still be able to do a couple of things with it, also in the future. And one of it is to capitalize on best practices to boost the capacities across countries. This study is a survey report, but it's also, it kind of brings together a set of case studies and good practices, which is basically the core business of WAVES, okay? And I think we are in a good position and well recommended to use the data, collect more data, like we did for the study in the future, and use this data for strategic decisions and planning. You're doing that in your public employment services, I'm sure, but we could do it more on a globalized level together. Create a comparative basis of the data. We compared this data we collected now with a survey we did back in 2011 that was smaller, but yet the structure was similar. And I think it's a valuable tool to have a long-term comparability of what you're doing in your public employment services, how it's evolving, and what you can improve in the future. And I think it's also good as a basis of accountability towards your ministries, towards your clients, and towards our partners. And in this context of capitalizing on best practices, I think it's also good to break down to the local level best practices, because that's where actually the good practices happen. Not only, and I know that you're rather central administrative government, you are basically governing this local structure, but I think we're well advised to look very much also at the local level when it comes to best practices. Create partnership working groups for the future. That's something that we have been doing for a couple of times in WAVES. For example, if I remember right, we just had an event in the Philippines about labor market information systems. Labor market information being a topic that is very important in public employment services, but we don't often talk about it in WAVES or on a global level. So we did that in the Philippines, and out of this, there's the idea to set up a working group with the Asian Development Bank and a couple of public employment services, South Korea, for example. So we think that this system of setting up working groups with international organizations, private partners, academia, but also, of course, among public employment services about a specific topic, and studies like this one that we have just published can help to identify what are those topics. I think that is a powerful tool to create capacity building and development. And last, one thing that we tried also in this study, we started doing it. We set up a typology of public employment services, basically with the help of a cluster analysis. We made little groups of public employment services according to their level of development. And that's not to classify public employment services, saying this is a good one and this is a bad one, like in Cinderella. It's rather to cluster, to make peer groups, to avoid that one very developed public employment service is talking with a less developed one about something that will, where the less developed one will probably never get because they don't have the means. So the creation of peer groups, and we started doing that in a project with Canada, Germany, South Korea, and the USA and Japan, is to put those countries together that have one topic where more or less they're at the same development level, and they will have still, because the experiences are different, a learning experience and can move on from there. So what we did in this first step of the cluster analysis is to see what, based on your responses, what are the number of functions you described in the survey, meaning what are the services you offer, and what are the range of services. For example, one service would be we offer service to employers, but then within this employer service, what is the range of services? What are you doing with them? Are you just offering them to put their vacancies on the database of the public employment service, or are you having networking breakfasts with them? Are you assessing the skills of the people that work in the company to help them develop, etc. So basically on this, we made 4 groups that you will find in the study of how a typology could be set up. But this is of course not a definite thing, this is just a trial. And for the future, our suggestion is to use more typologies and more cluster analysis to make groups within yourselves about specific topics. So basically the message we're sending here, and that is coming out of the study clearly, is that it's important to talk about topics, and it's important to talk about topics with the right people to keep it focused. Thank you.